You sort of mentioned something as well about how rather than the Fed maybe tightening, markets are actually starting to tighten as well. So I'm not sure if it sort of seems like you touched on a few points there, but maybe you can expand on that. It seems quite interrelated.
Yeah, I mean the Fed, in a lot of ways, the Fed is decided to take a back seat here in the sense of they've tightened, they sort of look at the picture and they've tightened 500 basis points, and they started quantitative tightening, but and that's sort of plodding along and not much changed. But they're not really looking to do a meaningful amount more. Instead, probably what they're looking to do is to be sort of higher for longer in the form of sort of pausing for longer rather than aggressively tightening. And the thing that's interesting about that is, I mean, first of all, that still will put some pressure on rates because cuts are priced into the U.S. 4 cuts are priced into 2024. So even if the Fed is flat in terms of their policy, that's an effective tightening. Each day they don't ease is an effective tightening. But I think the other thing that it creates is it means that you're going to have a long end tightening, right? Both because the Fed isn't doing the job that they need to do. Also, there's a number of supply dynamics that are also going to hit the long end over the course of the next 3 or 6 months. And so you put that together, and we're probably going to have what I describe as a market-based tightening more than a Fed-based tightening that creates the toppling of the economy. And that's not that unusual. Like sometimes there can be market-based tightenings that basically get it done. Of course, it's not totally irrelevant. The Fed's actions are not totally irrelevant because the Fed did tighten, 500 plus basis points, right? So it is a contributor to it, even though it's not the sort of the last push that pushes the economy over.
Yeah, and I think I talked to Andy Constant recently, and he was saying that there's been quite a shortage in sort of some of those long end bonds, which probably is now going to end. So now there's more supplies. Probably the prices are going to have to go down, and that's really been preventing maybe that tightening in some certain assets because there's been that shortage.
Right, and that's essentially the market-based tightening, which is because it's not the Fed. The Fed is not tightening interest rates. The Fed is not selling selling more bonds. They're selling some bonds right now, but really it's the fact it's the market for borrowing and lending in the economy that is going to require higher interest rates than what we've seen previously. And anytime you see that sort of dynamic, higher interest rates, it both has a very mechanical impact in the sense of if the discount rate, which discounts the future cash flows of all assets, if that goes up, equities in a lot of ways are just like a long duration security. It's just that the earning side of the coupon is variable rather than certain, the way it is in a bond. And so as interest rates rise, you get the price, downward pressure on the price of all assets. But then the other issue, which I think is important, is the literal supply elements. The fact that there's going to be a pickup in issuance means that somebody has to actually come through and buy the bonds. Now, governments never run into a problem where like no one's going to buy their bonds. Of course, people will buy, U.S. Treasuries, the most liquid asset in the world. The question is, at what price will they buy the Treasury? And do you need the yields to rise to induce people to come in? And secondarily, do you need people to sell other assets in order to finance the purchase of those bonds? And so that's really the dynamic that I think we're likely to see, over the course of the next, say, 3 or 6 months, where that supply is going to have to be met in a way that's probably going to create a drag on other asset prices.